Americans for Fair Taxation presents the Weekly Chairman's Report, written by Steve Hayes, president of Americans for Fair Taxation, and recorded by Bob Paxton, a volunteer with the Florida FAIRtax Educational Association. And now, this week's Chairman's Report.
Hello, I'm Bob Paxton with the AFFT Chairman's Report for Friday, February 18th, 2022. A president tells us why we must continue. Now, many of us have labored for many years to pass the FAIRtax, a bill that will do much to remedy many of the problems that have divided our country and hampered our prosperity. It will also let us take back control of how much we pay in federal taxes and clearly see how much we are paying in federal taxes. Now, we're not funded by special interest. None of us receive a salary, and we all pay our own expenses related to our FAIRtax activities. Now, this is so unusual that many in D.C. refuse to accept that we do this with nothing personal to gain. They are used to dealing only with people who are seeking a benefit for their clients or for themselves at everyone else's expense. That's just the way they operate. And to deal with people like us is very unsettling to them. We can't be silenced with money or special favors. In 1995, Bill Archer became chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee. He was from Houston and was a friend of the men who created AFFT, and he became a friend of mine. Now, Bill and I spoke at a rally in Houston that was attended by over 400 volunteers who were seeking to replace the federal income tax with a national retail sales tax. After our presentation, Bill had an opportunity to speak with a number of the attendees. When he asked them why they supported the national retail sales tax, they all said it was for the good of the country and for their kids and grandkids. As we were leaving, Bill came up to me and remarked, "I can't believe that these people all came to show their support for something that would not benefit them directly, but only benefits the country." Well, yeah, you skeptics in D.C., there are people who do things because they're right and good and not for compensation or glory. Sometimes when I get discouraged, I look to history, and particularly to people who have taken positions and advocated that good people must keep telling the truth, and eventually they will succeed. The man in the arena, citizenship in a republic. Theodore Roosevelt gave his Citizenship in a Republic speech on April 23, 1910 at the Sorbonne in Paris. Now, Theodore Roosevelt is between Thomas Jefferson and Abraham Lincoln on Mount Rushmore. He served as our 26th president from 1901 to 1909. Below are excerpts from that speech. A cynical habit of thought and speech, a readiness to criticize work which the critic himself never tries to reform, an intellectual aloofness which will not accept contact with life's realities, all of these are marks, not as the possessor would feign to think of superiority, but of weakness. They mark the men unfit to bear their part painfully in the stern strife of living, who seek, in the affection of contempt for the achievement of others, to hide from others and from themselves in their own weakness. The role is easy. There's none easier, save only the role of the man who sneers alike at both criticism and performance. It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes up short again and again because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. In conclusion, yes, most of the bureaucrats and politicians in D.C. are not interested in solving problems like those with the IRS. They want to talk about this small change and that small change, and they want to debate the benefits, but not really solve anything. Why? Because they know that actually solving a problem renders them irrelevant. When a problem is solved, experts like them are no longer needed, and they'd have to find other ways to earn a living. These people are great critics of people like us who are promoting a reform that actually transfers power back from them to the people while increasing everyone's prosperity and not just the favored few who purchase tax benefits. Many of those people in D.C. have never actually worked in the private sector. They often spend their entire lives working for the government or a think tank or a university. They are, for the most part, very bright people, but unfortunately, they believe that they, and only they, really know what's best for us. And since the uneducated masses can never understand what's good for them, they think their role is to tell everyone else what to do and to criticize any plan that anyone else comes up with. The agreement in D.C. seems to be, if enough people like them believe something and it can be shown on a spreadsheet, well, that's the way to go. Now, if their solutions don't work or even worsen the problem, well, that's not their fault. If their solution fails, it's always because the people charged with implementing it are incompetent or they just didn't follow the plan correctly. While Roosevelt's audience may have been a distinguished group of scholars and intellectuals, the real audience he sought to reach was people like us. He was saying to all of us that it's important not just to talk about problems, but to put your efforts into solving them. Even if it seems like there's no way to win, you have to try. Now, enacting the fair tax is not going to solve all of D.C.'s problems. There will still be disagreements over policy and how to best spend the money that the fair tax will raise. However, one thing will be fixed. D.C. will no longer be able to hide payoffs to their favored groups deep in an incomprehensible tax code. They'll have to put it in legislation where it can be much more easily discovered. The job of restoring freedom and prosperity will continue after the fair tax is passed. However, passing the fair tax will be a giant step towards reaching that goal. In an October 29, 1941 speech to the Harrow School for Boys, his alma mater, Winston Churchill said, "Never give in. Never give in. Never, 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 never. In nothing, great or small, large or petty, never give in." It's time for us to take back control and demand that Congress pass the fair tax. So, what can each of us do? We can write letters and make calls to our elected representatives and attend Zoom town hall meetings demanding that if they really want to allow Americans to take back control, the first step is to eliminate the income payroll tax system and enact the fair tax. We should all remember Edmund Burke's warning that applies to our efforts to take back control. Nobody made a greater mistake than he who did nothing because he could only do a little. Take back control. Help us pass the fair tax. The IRS will be gone and we'll pay our taxes when we make purchases. We, not the ruling class and their minions in D.C., will decide how much federal tax we pay, and we'll know how much tax we're paying because taxes will no longer be hidden from us. They'll be clearly shown on every retail receipt. If you have friends who don't know about the fair tax, send them to fairtax.org. Have them watch the whiteboards under how it works, and if they agree, ask them to please join us. Then, contact your members of Congress and the President and demand that Congress pass the fair tax, the only truly fair tax.
This has been the Weekly Chairman's Report, written by Steve Hayes, President of Americans for Fair Taxation. Check back every week for news and information about the fair tax, and learn why the fair tax should replace our antiquated federal income tax system. If you'd like to receive a copy of the Chairman's Report in your inbox every week, sign up at FAIRtax.org.